Hi class, in this video I am going to go over the technical description assignment. So basically what a technical description is, as the name implies, it's very technical. So you wouldn't describe an object the way you typically would in normal conversation. What technical means is that you're going to be very specific about the parts, the components. So what that means is that you're going to use the technical terms and you're going to use third person point of view. So don't use I or you. And the focus is going to be on the object. So what you have to do for this assignment is you have to pick an object or a mechanism. An object is something like a pencil, a pen, whereas a mechanism is something that has a specific function or working mechanism, such as like a toilet, a stapler, a phone, things like that. So that's what you want to pick. Now, it's very important that you pick an object that you are familiar with, because you do have to think about the length, the audience, and the purpose when you're selecting a topic. So try to think of an object that's not too detailed or complex, because you only have 3 to 4 pages to describe it. And also make sure that you are aware of who your audience is. So in this case, I'm your audience, but you're writing to a general audience. So you're writing to somebody who is a regular person and is not an expert in this object that you are describing. And also pick something that you are familiar with and interested in, because you do have to do research in terms of like dimensions and materials and things like that. So you want to make sure that you are a little bit familiar and interested with it, because for example, if you decide to describe a phone, but you know nothing about phones or anything like that, or curling irons or something like that, it might be a bit confusing when you're learning about the parts or the components, things like that. So let's go ahead and get to the parts of the document. So this is not going to be written in typical paragraph form. It's going to be written in sections. Now within those sections you might have paragraphs. However, each section should have a header. So make sure that you refer to the other modules where we talk about headers and fonts and things like that. So the first section should be your introduction. And in this introduction, you define the object. So you tell us what this object is and its purpose. So for example, if you are going to write about a curling iron, you would define a curling iron, and its purpose is probably to curl and to maybe add volume, right? So when you're defining the object, you obviously have to come up with your own definition. So like for a curling iron, I would say something like a hair tool that heats up and styles the hair. That could be my definition, and then I could say its purpose is to style, curl, add volume, things like that. Now in your introduction, you might want to tell us other information that you feel the audience needs to know. Like for example, with curling irons, they are made out of different materials. Some are made out of ceramic, and some are made out of tourmaline, and some are made out of titanium. So you might want to mention there that it's made out of titanium. Also with curling irons, the barrel is usually a certain number of inches, like 1/2 inch or 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch. So that's pretty important. So you want to go ahead and tell us that in the introduction as well. Just like if you are describing a phone, you want to tell us what model it is, because not all models are the same. So we need to know early on in the introduction what specific model you are going to be describing. Then we move on to the description. In the description is where you're really going to go into detail about the mechanism or the object's appearance. So you're going to tell us about the dimensions, the functions, the materials, the color, the shape, the texture. And you want to be descriptive. So for example, for texture, you want to tell us if it's smooth, shiny, grainy, rough, textured, or anything like that. And a lot of this information, you can either measure the object yourself, or you can go ahead and go online and do research on the object. So in this case, that's the type of sources that you will be using, like the product page, reviews, or anything that mentions information about the object. But remember that it's not a review or an evaluation or anything like that. So if you do refer to a review, you are mostly going to refer to the review to figure out like dimension, functions, materials, things like that. Now, these two sections are going to be written in paragraph form. However, once you get to the section for the major parts, you want to list the parts in bullet points. So this should not be paragraph. This is just a bullet list of the major parts. Then, oh, before I move on, I should say you want to make sure you look up the technical names for these parts. And since this assignment can have visuals, you can include a picture of the parts, or you can include, if you want to, you could take your own pictures of the parts. It's up to you. You don't have to include a picture of every single part, but some people do if they feel that it would help the audience to see the pictures of each part. Next, you're going to tell us how the mechanism works. So you're going to tell us, like for example, with a curling iron, how does it heat up? What do you have to press? Now you're not writing instructions, you're just going to tell us that it heats up, you open the barrel, you twirl your hair around, you leave it on for a few seconds, and it curls your hair. Now obviously you're going to do this more articulate manner and in more technical matter. I'm just kind of telling you like the gist of it. For a pencil, if you're describing a pencil, it's going to be obviously very simple, where you say, you know, you put it on paper and you write. You might need to sharpen it. The lead is the one that's writing. So think about how it works. Obviously, this might be a little bit easier for mechanisms because, you know, it's easier to explain how the mechanism works. If you're just focusing on a specific object, your section might be a little bit shorter than those who are writing about a mechanism. Also, something very important to note is that you should have visual depictions of the object or mechanism. So you should include at least two visuals. This can be either drawings or photos. So you can take the pictures yourself if you'd like. If you take them yourself, then you just need to make sure that you give yourself credit so that we know that they are your own work. If you get them from online, you want to make sure that you cite them, and you want to make sure that you label them. So like for example, if it's a picture, you put figure 1 curling iron, if you have a picture of a curling iron. So make sure that you label all of the visuals. That way when you refer to them, like if you say refer to figure 1, people know which visual is figure 1. So make sure that you label them, but also make sure that you cite them if they are not your own pictures. Then the last section should be the conclusion. And here you could include a brief history of the item. So you can go ahead and do research to provide a little bit of history. Like I personally don't know when the first curling iron was invented, so I can go ahead and do a little bit of research. Cost. I could go ahead and mention the cost of the specific curling iron that I am focusing on, but I can also go ahead and say this curling iron costs $50, but a typical curling iron ranges from $15 to $400 or something like that. Availability. So I would say that you can buy a curling iron at any beauty store or at any drugstore or pretty much anywhere that sells beauty tools, right? You also want to mention the manufacturer. Again, there's a lot of manufacturers, so you could tell us who it is, and a brief summary of your description, just to let us know, again, just to remind us of the important parts of your description. So for this, like, you might need to do a little bit of research, but like let's say you are describing the Apple Pencil for the iPads. You know the manufacturer is Apple. Availability, you know it's like sold at Best Buy, any store that sells tech stuff, I guess you could say. But you could do some research on like what kind of stores sell the Apple Pencil. So you know, for some of these things, like, you don't need to do research if you're familiar with the product, but if you're not familiar with the product, you might need to do a little bit of research. And then the very last part is a reference page of outside sources. So for this assignment, your outside sources might consist of dictionaries, encyclopedias, manuals, things like that, things that talk about the object. And I would be hesitant to include YouTube videos. You could include YouTube videos, but you have to make sure the person is reliable and they know what they're talking about. So like, for example, if I'm writing about a curling iron, you want to make sure the person is a hairdresser. If you're writing about an Apple Pencil or an iPad or something like that, you want to make sure that if you're using a YouTube video, the person has some background, like they've done reviews or they're journalists for a tech magazine or something, because we don't just want to get a video from an influencer, because as much as some people like them, they are not considered credible sources. Even if they claim to be, like, for example, a makeup artist, you have to make sure they have the credentials in order for it to be considered a reliable source. So here we have the rubric. So you want to make sure that you look at the rubric so that you know what's expected of you. And also you want to go ahead and make sure that you look at the modules, because I do have a module for technical description. So if we look down at the technical description module, we have the instructions that I just went over. We also have a printable version of the assignment instructions, and then we have some supplemental reading. So this supplemental reading is really helpful because it talks about descriptions. It also talks about how you should describe something, like whether you should do it top to bottom or left to right. And it even gives you an example. Oh, this one really focuses on, or it provides details on analogy. So definitely go ahead and look at that, because that's part of the rubric, that you do need to have an analogy for your description. And then over here we have a checklist, and here we have a technical description of a conventional flush toilet. So as you can see, it's separated into sections. Here we have a visual, and then we have the reference page. And then here we have another example, which is a ballpoint pen. And notice how they actually put the brand, so you can title your description after the specific brand. Like if I'm writing about a Hot Tools curling iron, I could put Hot Tools titanium curling iron. That could be the name of my description. So this is a really good example. Both of them are really good examples. And like I said, the pen is an object, the flush toilet is a mechanism. So definitely go ahead and refer to them. And we also have some more supplemental reading, and this one is just basically recommendations. And then if we keep going, we have a technical description of a mechanical pencil. So as you can see, there's like a picture, and if you want to, you can even label it if you'd like. So here we have, and this is what I mean by using the proper terminology. Like for example here, this is called the barrel assembly, the gripping assembly, things like that. So let me go back over here. Here we have more information on technical definitions and descriptions. So here it talks about choosing a topic, and it even has like a battery, manual can opener, catalytic converter, you know, things like that, a specific car model. Now, obviously, when it comes to like a specific car model, you're not going to get all into the details of like the motor and the inside of the car. You would only focus on like the outward appearance of the car. So definitely refer to that module, because that module has a lot of supplemental information that is really helpful for writing a technical description. And if I go down there again, like I said, it has some more examples right here, which is what we just saw right now. But it also has a planning sheet that could possibly help you. And this is not due or anything like that. It's just a planning sheet that you can use to help you organize your thoughts or anything like that. And then over here, we have another online textbook that talks a little bit more about technical description. So you can go ahead and read this for more details. But overall, this concludes our video where I go over the instructions. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will be glad to answer them. And also don't forget that with any major writing assignment, you can go ahead and take it to the tutoring center, and you get 5 points extra credit on that assignment. So like, let's say you get an 85 on your technical description, your grade automatically goes to a 95, sorry, to a 90, if you took it to the tutoring center, because you get 5 points extra credit. So the way to do that is to go ahead and contact the Writing Center, which is the ARC online tutoring. They need to add you to the course page on Canvas, and then you have to fill this out, which is in our week 1 module. You have to fill out a summary of tutoring session, and you submit it along with your technical description, and you get 5 points extra credit. So please definitely take advantage of that, and if you have any questions, please let me know.